Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the GDC Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis, and I am here today checking out a game called Ashwalkers with Herve, Bonin, and Matteo Gaulmier. Herve, Matteo, you guys come from the studio Nameless 13. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Good morning, everyone. Hello. So thank you very much for reaching us. So I'm Herve Bonin. I was one of the previous founder of Dontnod, and I am the general manager of Nameless 13.
And hello, I'm Matteo Gaulmier, and I'm the creative director / writer of Ashwalkers.
Nice. Ashwalkers, like I said, it's the game we're checking out today. If you paid attention to the menu a second ago, you might have noticed it was called Ashwalkers: A Survival Story, which, you know, as far as game titles go, it's very accurate. It's a story, and you survive in it. That's been my impression of it so far. For folks not familiar with the channel, today we are looking at pre-recorded videos, so if you want to yell at me about if we're, if we wanted to vote on decisions that we could make, sadly not happening today. That's my fault. I'm bad at video games, and you know what? It's hard to talk to smart game developers and play video games at the same time. I didn't know if you knew that. Maybe you did know that. Well, let's get started. As the intro rolls before us, and we're gonna see the tutorial in just a second. Matteo and Herve, what the heck is this game? Where did it come from? Why is it here? Why is it so beautiful? Like, I could keep gassing you guys up more, but what I really should do is let you introduce your game and explain sort of where it came from.
Okay. The whole adventure started 4 years ago. It started as a student project in a school in Toulouse, the ETPA, and it started as a project of end of formation, end of school, and we had to produce a game during the year. And this idea first has born in the school. We were with some friends and some classmates, and we produced a first game during the year that was called Cendre. And we at the end of year ceremony, we met one of the jury, Herve Bonin, and Herve liked our game and liked what we had to propose. And from this point, we talked with Herve. We had a long discussion about how we should continue to produce this game after. And finally, we decided yes. And in 2019, so 2 years ago, we started Nameless 13, and we started to produce directly from student to indie devs this game. And we had 2 years to bring the best of us to prove that this idea was nice. And we had this game releasing last week. And you have Ashwalkers under your eyes.
Yes, perfectly said. Nothing to add.
Nothing to add.
Yeah, that's it.
I can go on and add details.
Well, Matteo, Matteo, I want to learn more about like the game's making first. But Herve, as a co-founder of Dontnod, I gotta admit that's kind of a new pitch. That's kind of a new thing I've heard about a studio. Like Dontnod's an established studio, and not just in the world of Life is Strange, but you've got games like Vampire. Real neat game. I was playing it a lot pre-pandemic or on my Nintendo Switch when it launched there. That's a really big. I'm really like impressed that you have one company that's it's there, it's moving along, it's you co-founded it, and then you see a student game that makes you go, okay, yeah, I'm done with the established company. I want to go help a student game move to commercial success. So what made you want to make that jump?
No, that's not exactly that way that things happen. In fact, it was the end of my adventure with Dontnod because it was I have nothing to do anymore in that company. It was quite a few years ago. And then after a little bit of rest and experimenting a new kind of gameplays, because at Dontnod it's a huge machine and was just managing people. And so I was willing to do something by myself, reprogram, because I'm first a programmer. And so I've tried some new prototype of my own, and also I was looking for indie game because I think it's a great area of play. And at that time, just came back to my own city in the countryside because I'm from Toulouse, and there was a student school, and so I was wanting to do a new indie game company, and see this student project, and I said to the guy, hey, we have something to do together because I think you are doing a great job, and there is narrative parts that are recognized. And you are about to do something, picture a story with sound, music, and everything. And I think we should do something together. And that's just how it started. And the meeting was very cool. And so the student became my partners.
Nice, Matteo. Let's swing back to you for a second. Okay, so Ashwalkers. To me, as an outside observer, I look at this game. I see a survival game. I get shades of Oregon Trail, that classic, like, a party across a landscape. Party members can drop dead, and so the goal is to keep them alive. In this game, the challenges include... Moral challenges might be too far a swing to describe, but it's kind of like, how do we approach kind of a social problem, as well as, physical survival problems, are some of the choices you make. So what was kind of the underpinning architecture for taking this game from let's go all the way back to, like, kind of those student days when you were, like, prototype, and then you were like, okay, we can leave the prototype space and go into shipping something space. So what was kind of the architecture of the design for this game?
From the start of since we left school.
Kind of that transition from the start to, like, okay, this is a game, we can make this game. I'm sorry, that's not as clear, but
no problem. I wanted to be sure. Okay, so the whole idea behind the game was the choices and the what's happened inside the game. And we are a huge fan of tabletop role playing. And fun fact, the game was first prototyped as a tabletop role playing, almost as a board game at first, and on paper, on table. And this idea of the tabletop RPG, especially one question: what do you do? And how you approach this situation was something we liked, and we wanted to take a bit of I won't say a twist, but a bit of an approach that was a bit less moral in terms of good or bad, what you do is good or bad, and a bit more like, okay, what do you do? How do you approach a situation? In the text we see on screen, you can see you approach a wolf, and you have to decide how you approach the situation. And we would not want to do the judging side of the game. We wanted to avoid just saying, okay, you have this situation. Do you take the bad decision or the good decision? And are you good and evil? And we wanted to avoid this at maximum level, and so this is what kept us since the beginning of the game. And since the beginning of the project, even at school, it was okay. We won't judge. We just put the situation and try to give the players the maximum possibilities and option in front of a situation. And this is why it drives everything from the game. This idea of choice, as we even the text-based events that you can see on the screen, the choice of going with the text instead of, I don't know, voiceover, of something that is more standard in the industry, like you can see in Telltales or even at Dontnod. We wanted to have this place for the mind to wander and to find, okay, you see a shape in the horizon, but all you can imagine what it is. You can even the silhouette you can see in the screen right now. You don't know exactly who it is, how does it work. You only have the text and your own choice to discover that. And we wanted to push this idea to the game.
Yeah.
So yes. Yes.
We can build off the tabletop angle there that you mentioned real quick. When I play tabletop games, I've noticed that, and there's actually an interesting overlap here with the survival genre. My party members in a lot of tabletop games are most concerned with dying. If I'm playing if I'm playing an experience and it's something like this where like what I decide to do, it's sort of like there's no skill, like there's no amount of skill I can bring to the table with a controller or with combos or with knowing a something more abstract, like think Frostpunk, like I'm like, oh, like I have this much knowledge of my resources in Frostpunk, I could probably worm my way out of these bad situations if I play my cards right. In a game like Ashwalkers or in a tabletop game, kind of the death averse mentality is something I found a lot because, like you said, like what do you do is a question that often goes to, I feel like as a player, I feel like I hear a lot, what I hear from my fellow players a lot is, oh no, if I do the wrong thing, I'll die. And sort of, I'm kind of curious, and death is right there on the table because, one of the first things you learn playing this game is if 3 of your 4 party members die, game over. And those little timers in all those little bars in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen are all different countdowns towards death. So I'm kind of curious how, as a designer, you were able to encourage players to fear death less and make interesting choices more.
I think we kind of linked the choices to the survival condition. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to avoid is less than fear of death, is more, we wanted to avoid absolutely the optimization of your play. Mm-hmm. Okay, I will do that choice because I know this is how I will win the game. Mm-hmm. This is what we wanted to avoid. And the question you ask when you are in front of a choice of Ashwalkers is most commonly, okay, how will I survive this encounter? How would I decide to face this? Okay, mm-hmm. I have, I don't know, I have some wood, I can light a fire to scare an animal, but this wood will be consumed for the next camp that I will make, and maybe my character will froze to death. Mm-hmm. So this is more about what you are able to sacrifice to make your squad and the people live than what is a good or bad choice. And I don't know, optimization. I don't know if that's a friend in English. Mm-hmm. This is about optimization, but you are the squad, so you have to think about, okay, what I am ready to sacrifice to advance inside the game. And this is most of our choice like this. And fear of death is always here, mm-hmm. and you have to think forward and to prepare to what's coming on.
That's a good answer. I liked the part about trying to avoid there being an optimal choice. I really like that part. I'm gonna have some more questions for Matteo and Herve in just a second, but I wanted to go to chat first because chat, we've had some wonderful folks show up who wanted to say some things. Before I start reading this off chat, if you have questions for Matteo and Herve, you can ask about Ashwalkers, you can ask about running a company, whatever you want to know. Whether you're fans of games or want to make games yourselves. Here at Game Developers Conference, especially on the Twitch channel, we're trying to get answers for you. Knowledge, learning, excitement. These are the vibes we want to give off. Let's start off. We got a lot of heart emojis in here. Vernon Good Enough wants to say that the amazing game in art direction, so many paths and endings.
Vernon.
Perfectly balanced difficulty thanks to the team. MJ Adax says baguettes. I don't normally. I hope it's a meme for someone because it's not a meme for me. And Ken Zakoya wants to say that they're in love with this game. Oh wow! Like that's so much love for this game coming in.
That's nice.
Yeah.
This is name we've heard a lot, and Vernon was an early streamer of the game, and I salute him. Your videos are great.
Oh hey, Vernon.
You can take him out.
Vernon, as a streamer, as an amateur streamer over here, thank you for dropping by our stream. I appreciate it. Herve, I want to ask you, what were some of the challenges, kind of helping, shepherd this team and this game from start to finish? What kind of new challenges came with this smaller game as opposed to the kind of games you worked on at Dontnod?
Yeah, it was something very different because Dontnod was a huge enterprise. We have huge investment in the beginning, and we start really to hire a core team with only senior and very experimented people. Mm-hmm. And so it's really not the same kind of company because I wanted to have something lighter. And there was also one business hypothesis I was making myself. I think there is a huge waste in student school with a lot of very talented people that sometimes are some at Dontnod as a junior, but I think there is a huge waste of creativity. And I wanted to check if some young student people were able to finish a game from beginning to start. Mm-hmm. And the concept of Ashwalkers is proving it. So I'm very happy that my business hypothesis is valid.
Yeah.
And my goal is to make more indie games with this team, and with something fresh and new. And with a small team, it's very easy to. I think on my side there is less financial pressure than for huge big games. It's very different. For the guys, there is a huge pressure because it's their first game. And so, in a way, it's their life they're putting on the game. But I'm a little bit older and I've seen other things. So for me, it's far much easier. So I have far much less pressure. And I try just to help the guys to give them the best. But I cannot give them all they wanted. I'm sure if I give more to Matteo on the financial aspect, he could have done something more and bigger and greater. But that was not the goal. We were here to do an indie game and just push further a student project into a real game. Mm-hmm. It was an experience of its own, start a new company, and so that the guys learn and be confident in themselves. And I think it's something that I can do, and that was my goal to help them. And I was also in love with this game. When I first tried the prototype, I felt something great, and remembering some books I was reading, and remember the first sentences with Matteo was a reference of a great book in France, and we have the same narrative, how can I say, origin books, I don't know in English.
It's interests, would interests be the right word?
Interest, yeah, the same universe.
Yeah.
Same kind of reading. I'm also a tabletop gamer and
influences. So I think influence is actually the word. I'm
influences.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so yeah, it was not only a game; it was a startup to start with talented people. So different level of success: the game and also the company, and make them progress. So yeah. I'm very happy.
I'm going to pivot back to Matteo here because we're coming up on one of my favorite parts from my experience with the game, which is the Hound's mansion that you encounter.
Yes.
So I want to comment on what's going on screen right now specifically. This is me. When I've played a bunch of these games by now, I sort of know, like, I know how to ride. In my view, I'm like, I feel like I know how to ride. Okay, my party's tired, people are hungry, but I'm looking at the road ahead and I don't see anything obstacle-y coming up, so I can maximize how long we go and then feed and then keep going. As you can see, poor Petra here is actually not maximized because she took some damage and I'm out of med kits. But don't worry, she'll be okay. So I did this because I saw that mansion and I went, all right, something's happening there, and I want those numbers up to make it through that mansion. And when I got in there, I was rewarded with an encounter that actually didn't, like, it was not entirely necessary for me to go through the steps that I'm going through here. Mild spoiler, but and what I got was something actually that I thought was a little more interesting, which was like, instead of a boss fight, I got an encounter that I had to navigate using. What I liked about this the most was that I kind of got to bring my own vibe for how I would manage this situation into the, like, I felt genuinely like the choices were wide enough that I could navigate it in my way, as opposed to, like, I don't know, something inspired by Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is, what a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction takes inspiration from. But I still had that tension, where coming up, I'm like, okay, like, something's on the horizon, like, I'd better gear up, like that classic, like, shooter or third-person platformer vibe of, like, there's a boss up ahead, there's a room full of loot, I'd better make sure, like, I'm good to go. what as a designer, like, how did you sort of navigate, you know, like players, like what, like that anticipation versus like what was actually waiting for them in the room? Because like player behavior is so much more used to, you know, like I need to come into these things as ready as possible versus once you get in there, it's like, oh, nothing. That little rest moment actually didn't help me, but it did, you know, I don't know, but it wasn't a waste either. Like, I guess that was my experience, and I want to throw that at you and go, what do you think? Sorry, there's a question in there somewhere.
Yes. So, intensity and tension. This is what what you are talking about. Yes. Okay. This round and the manor was a big challenge for us. As it was the first zone of the game, and this was the end of it, and we wanted to be memorable. We wanted to be like, okay, we wanted people to talk about, okay, what did you do with the hound? How you managed to go through it? So we build up the tension since the beginning of the zone, and you have in the outpost at the beginning, you have a tag on the wall that say, okay, you have this tag with people from the outside, and it pictures a wolf. Okay, if you go further, we put hints of what's coming on all along the zone, and finally you came in this place in the front of the manor, and you have this house that's sort of nowhere, and you have this road that goes up, and we wanted to stress the player and to do exactly what you did. And we wanted to, okay, you have something here, you don't know what it is, but it can be dangerous. And we push the player to go through it and to go inside the manor. And once you prepared, here it was very difficult to write because we wanted to have all kinds of behavior, just like in what we said before, but we wanted them to feel more heavier and more important. And by that, one solution we found was to reduce the number of choice. And when the player is getting used to have 4 choices or 3 choices, when you put him in a situation where he has only 2 choices, this starts, it builds tension because you don't have much to do, and this is what we want to tell by the system. You don't have much room to act now. You have to be prepared, and this time you have to do one thing, and this will be very important. And as you said, you have, for example, if we continue into the spoiler, and you, as I see in the video, you decide to not draw your weapons in front of the hound and to talk with them. If you draw your weapons with the hound, you will have only 2 solutions: either fight or flee. And you could not come back to the duel you have encountered after. And this was very important for us because it was okay. If you have someone that did not know the group, but don't know your intention, show them your intentions. And we build up the tension like this. We build up the tension by reducing the number of choices. And you've got a good pass, and even the duel could have ended wrongly, and you have make good choice and arrived safely to your situation.
Yeah, I thought
because you trusted them finally.
Yeah, I thought that encounter was really interesting because it actually, like we talked earlier about how you said that you didn't want to make a game where it was optimizable, and I went through that encounter and relied on my diplomat character in a fight, and in tabletop game logic, that's a terrible choice. You put your talkers in the talky problems and your fighters in the fighty problems, and in this case, a mix of my quickest fighter is weakened. Yeah, I have a brawler, but I don't know if I want to kill this guy, and so I'm left with my diplomat, and I'm like, what if you just run around, I'm just like, okay, let's just try running through, and I also appreciate kind of I also appreciated like combat as ritual, the combat as ritual part of it. You know, like a group of people who are like, okay, we have a combat ritual, and you just need to best them, and it's like, well, it turns out best is a very broad definition, as opposed to, you know, like trial by honor, the strongest, or trial by combat, the strongest one win. Like the ritual component, you know, the winner mattering more than the violence, was just super neat. That's not a question. That's just a chef's kiss. Folks,
that was very, very important for us to picture the people living from the outside, and we wanted to have something very a bit different from what you see with the horde of warriors. And even if they were warriors, we wanted to write something with a bit of a twist, as you said. The best win and not the strongest, and this was what we wanted to say with these people, with this group of people. And we all through the game we talk about different people and different behaviors, and this was very important to have something that was not totally cliche.
Oh my god, yeah, the avoiding of cliche is what I saw the most in my time with this game. When it comes to the game refers to them as the savages, but by the end I was like, man, that's just someone else's word for these guys, as opposed to and also like it's always been in the real world, it's always been just someone else's name for indigenous people. In chat, we've got, you know, just more love for the game. Vernon's back with kudos for the soundtrack, music, and sound design, which are totally immersive. And Heckin' Robin agrees.
Oh, Heckin' Robin. Hello.
Herve, I'm gonna swing back your way for kind of a studio operations, like shepherding this team across the finish line challenge. You know, audio is actually a decent thing to touch on here, in that you know, at a bigger company, you have a bigger audio team, and you have sort of more ability to pump out, like, okay, like we have all this voice acting we need to get done, we can prioritize that. And on a smaller indie team like this, even if you have a dedicated sound person, there are more challenges to still, like produce and manage the content and get it across the finish line. What did you see as some of kind of the challenges of like, you know, like creativity, like, you know, you've got this team of talented young students turned professionals. Their vision is interesting, but it's, your scope is also limited. Scope management, I guess, is what we're narrowing into here as a question. So as a you know, someone who's worked in these two different studio environments, like how did you sort of see scope management working on this project compared to other projects you've been on?
In fact, it was quite easy, because the prototypes they have done at Citizen Project was already showing what they were able to do by their own. So for the sound design, the prototype was quite amazing. So I was quite sure they were able to manage this part. It was a project of its own with everything blend together. There is already some good visual, there is already some good sound design, and already some original music. So they already have the feeling of what they were doing, the blend and the flavor. And so what I just have to verify is that they were able to maintain their talent and keep the scope they are defining themselves. And so if their promise are for real, or they go far much beyond what they are able to do. And then have to just put in front of what we expect to do the investment needed so they arrive. And also what is very difficult is to have faith in a way in them. It was like in .NET, to have a faith in project is not so easy. And the more there is time between the beginning and the end, you have to be really confident and give some milestone to be able to check, verify that we are in line with what you expect, but also that the team is still able to do it and not losing faith in what they are doing. And it's very difficult to transform the initial idea into something real that player will have in end. And my just main focus is to kill the key to the good people, whatever it was in .Node or with nameless searching. And I think my talent is make people have more talent. And so I help them to do it. And for the music, it's an indie game, but we have a great new original composition with a young talented student of himself some friend and knowledge of Matteo, and it's always like things like this for indie game company. You can push the limit with a small budget. I can tell you that the music, we have a lot of music in this game, which are all totally original, and it's amazing soundtrack. And I think it's also a product of its own. Really, I don't know if you hear it also, but I think we have something to do to sell this music by itself with the game.
Yeah.
So and it's a real fun to see that we can do great things. It's the same thing for the visual. You have to be we have no room for error, so we have to take a direction and push it further.
Yeah. Herve, while I've got you on the horn here, there's kind of a businessy angle that I kind of noticed about this game that piqued my curiosity. Pricing indie games on Steam is a tough topic for every indie out there.
Yes.
I know some indies who are very passionate about, like, if it's less than $20, you know, it's very difficult to make up, you know, the number of units sold relative to cost for the game. And I know other indies who are like, if I don't go on the cheaper side, like, it's difficult for me to compete with, you know, like, with something, you know, that's at the same value at $20, you know, like a Frostpunk or something. I think Frostpunk clocks in at more expensive for... I keep referencing Frost. I can speak, I promise. Frostpunk clocks in at more expensive than that, but it's a useful touch point for, like, you know, survival for my brain here. This game does clock in at under $20. What was kind of the decision driving that?
It's also it's a way to be efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So we choose very early to work with deal villager with it, or publisher in a way. So we are doing the game, we own the IP, but they are doing and marketing, and they also determine what is the right price for the game, because it's very, very difficult to imagine what is a proper price. So when you are confident in people, and it's my way of working with Matteo or other people, they say me, the good price, that's it. I say, okay, that's it. So I do my computation to see, okay, if we sell this are we still living? Are we dead or not? And then I say, okay, we go. And we go. We are with this price. I think it's a very fair price for the content.
Yeah.
And we also try to be player. It's not... We are in front with game, and so we just have to remember what we are able to pay for a game.
Yeah.
And I think as an indie developer, it's far much easier to think as a gamer than a huge big company with hundreds of people who are depending on the price and the huge marketing. Life is very easier for me, and with Deal Villager, it was great. And also, I just want to tell just a few words also that in France we have a huge subsidies from the French government, so which help us a lot to do this game. And so it's also not it's help the company to be profitable for first game.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense, yeah, especially in countries where the government's are more involved in the arts. I live in a country where, well, it helps fund the Kennedy Center. Beautiful theater, I gotta say. By the way, I saw Phantom of the Opera there. But yeah, that's interesting. I actually want to. You mentioned yourselves, you know, thinking as indie developers, you get to quote think as gamers. I've heard that a lot from some developers who are like. Because, especially here in my part of the world, like knowing, you know, the developers I know who work at larger companies, there's so much like key passing back and forth, especially among studios, that I know a lot of game developers who say, I don't feel personally attached to the price of games anymore because I get so many for free through my friends. I get, you know, I work so much that I just essentially buy them when they go on discount, or I make one, you know, $60 purchase a year. Essentially, versus versus the average player who might want to, whether they play one multiplayer game over and over, or want to check out a bunch of indie games, or want to check out a bunch of AAA games. Like I can see why, sort of thinking about yourself, like there's like being in a position where you're not disconnected from the realities of pricing is important.
Yeah. And also one of the things I've made with this company, because all the students are partners of the company, so really involved on the profitability of the company, and so it's linked also to the price, to the work they put in the game, and or how much they are paid. Everything is something which is coming together. So it's hard for them because they have a huge involvement on the game, but also in the company and the profitability. So it's a good experience, but it's difficult to be an associate and also someone working on a game. So I think it's better for the people, but it perhaps for the mental sanity, sometimes it can be harder. So Matteo, I think will agree with me. So I give them the key as much as I can, so that they can figure, okay, we are doing a game, but there is limit in what we can do for a game because we expect some sales, and so we cannot push more money. And if we push more money, we need to have a big marketing because we need to reach more people. And it's something which is more and more difficult. The more you give, after you have to be clever. It's not only money that makes good games. There is some mono game were great with just one people. So every game has its different story. But in our story, we want to share everything, whatever the price, marketing, everything is clear.
Yep. Comment from Ken Zakoya in chat saying it's your team's first game, so you can be proud of yourself. They'll be waiting to hear more from Nameless13. Also, Team Nadir. Matteo, let's swing back to, we're going through kind of a choice situation now, and I think we've talked a good amount about the game's choice. As a designer, how do you... When you're still figuring out the balance of a game flow, like let's go to the bars, which unfortunately aren't on screen right now. You have to manage health, hunger, energy, and rest, and kind of a that sleep factor or warmth. You have to manage, and then also hope. You've got there's a hope meter that's kind of hiding behind the other meters back there in a different way. When you are in the sort of tooling prototyping stage, before things are rendering on screen and before encounters are happening, how are you simulating and tweaking the values on those bars to sort of get the optimal results? And sort of what's your philosophy for like it seems like a lot of math is what I'm saying, and I'm bad at math, so I want to know how you hit that math.
We are bad at math too.
You're bad at math.
I'm bad at math too.
Someone in this chat has to be good at math.
No, we try to project what we want for the game, and mostly it's the only way you can develop a game. It's testing, bringing new player, testing the game. And this is something that is very difficult, especially like how all the statistics you showed up, and even in comparison to some bigger games with huge RPG mechanics, we have a smaller amount of values and of parameters. These parameters can influence a lot on the game, how many you lost by step you take, and etc. So the whole philosophy behind the balancing of the game was to ensure that there is a good... This was more about balancing in the experience than in the fairness of the game. I don't know if I'm clear. It was more about the rhythm of the game than about the difficulty of it. We wanted the player to have a part of his time not too concerned by the survival and more by walking and exploring the world and making choices. So we balanced the value to, okay, you are trying to survive and you are trying to endure this harsh weather, but you are also living in a story and you have also choice to make. And we balanced to have a bit more of this, a bit more of the story and a bit less of the difficulty. And this was a very difficult thing to balance, especially when you have played your game thousands of hours and now you know exactly what you do to reach an ending. As a team and as our game designer tried to make he could not even see after 2 years of production. We just played the game easily, and we don't felt like being able to balance the game ourselves anymore. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of playtesters, but I think a lot. QA team from the villagers, which helped us a lot. And with them and the playtester, we could balance the game and tweaking the values more. Okay, you need a bit more of this, you need a bit less of that. And this was the way we balanced the game, with the player feedback, with all the experience and what we get from them. And there was a lot in the systems, even if we had a minimalist system from a survival game. But it was only thanks to the players we can balance this game. So yeah, we don't have a magic formula behind it.
Yeah,
not right now.
That's if anyone had a magic formula, I'd love to see the GDC talk on it.
I have the thing.
Let's talk about. I'm surprised we sort of got this far without talking about sort of the black and white aesthetic. I feel like this is one of those things. This was there from that was there since the prototype. It's a defining look. We're sort of seeing an example here, how an object on screen is made more, hey, I'm here, come over to me, I am resources. In the final product of this game, what did you learn about, when you go for a black and white aesthetic? On the one hand, you gain some clarity because anything that sticks out from the color scheme, stands out, and therefore players will navigate towards it, will drift towards it. And on the other hand, how do you navigate? Sometimes you want things to be more obscure. Sometimes you want information. You want a little bit of nuance in there. You don't want things to be strikingly obvious. I was gonna make in there somewhere a reference to. I realized wait, why is this black and white thing where is this also hardwired in my brain? And I realized it's that classic book we all read in middle school in the United States, The Giver. So I was like, wait, why is red such a standout black? Right, The Giver. So so I'm just kind of, that makes me kind of curious. As a team, what were some of the challenges of working in this black and white kind of grayscale space that you have?
It was a huge challenge. So it was a very cool idea, and we dive into it in school and it was okay. We wanted to keep that. It was very resonant with the theme of the ashes and the theme of the post-apocalyptic and the theme of violent despair. It was resonating with all of what we wanted to talk. Mm-hmm. So we went for it. The hardest thing, I think, that was the biggest challenge we had to face was the clarity of the game in all of these aspects. Mm-hmm. When you work with grayscale, and especially with the one we have, which has finally not so much contrast, you don't have pure black and pure white. You have to balance the contrast all around the game, all around the environment, and especially this zone that you see on the screen, the volcanic tundra, was very difficult to work with because we had all these vegetations, mm-hmm. the black ground, and at night was a nightmare. At night you want to have this feeling of it's night, it's dark, and you will get lost, but you don't want your player to get lost inside a level. So you try to make things different, and you work on the lights. The lighting of the scenes was very difficult to put and to work with. And the main advantage we got from working with that is, as you said, when we want to put something in evidence, we use a color. And that color was red, which was definitely working with what we were saying also, with the blood, with the violence, with the danger, and with the lava, with the fire. It was resonating also with what we wanted to say. So as soon as you put something different in that environment, it's seeing you can see it from everywhere. Mm-hmm. So the red, for example, was a great way of telling the player, okay, you're in danger, or you just killed someone or something. And this was a way to say, to bring the player attention and to bring him back to the game. And so he don't walk just and he say, oh, damn, my character died. No, your character was bleeding 5 minutes ago and you saw it. So now this is danger. We had trouble working with the whole quality of the game, and we are still taking improvement and feedback from it. Mm-hmm. And we are working from the demo. Maybe we had a lot of feedback from the players, and that was troubling with reading some white on white gray text. Mm-hmm. And we went and added shadows all over of our interfaces and our UI, and we added a lot of shading around that to make it stand better. And yeah, working, telling something with the player when you remove the colors to a designer, I think that's a great challenge, and that was difficult. However, our game designer and UI designer find a great way to evoke that.
Yeah. I have a specific and maybe nitpicky question about the black and white. As a player, I'm playing this game, I see the black and white, and what I've internalized, and on one hand I get like all the red, like the red on Sin's got some red on his body right now because he's got those little wounds. He's off camera right now. God dang it. Some part of me is like, some of this is literal and some of this is abstract. Some of this is video game and some of this is what the characters are literally seeing in this fictional world. And then at one point in the dialogue, there was a line that referred to the yellow kind of fog. It might have been in this area. And my brain, I swear to I had like a whole thing. I'm like, yellow? Like, what's yellow? So it's just one line. And maybe it's fixed the problem you're just talking about. I'm curious how there was a lot of writing that went into this game too, and to have something like that happen and how it hits with player expectations. Maybe I'm the only one who noticed it, but it broke my brain a little bit because I'm like, wait, I thought everything was black and white. I thought this was a black and white Earth. But yeah, I'm curious if you had any. I don't know what the question is there, to be honest, but I'm just like, that was my experience. But did you
I get your point. But this was a bit of. This was a true question in design phase, mm-hmm. And it was about the perception. Who is looking at the game?
Yeah.
Right now, who is that camera? Who tells the story? And if you play the game, you have a better idea of who is talking and who is telling the story. And so this kind of cognitive dissonance. I don't know if that's the word.
The phrase is the phrase that we all lean on is ludonarrative dissonance. But if you say it, you have to take a shot and pay what's his name? Clint. You have to pay Clint Hawking $10 if you say it. So I don't know if it's in the budget for the show.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so this was a bit of we avoided at maximum to say over colors inside the game, except for the even when we talk about vegetation, we talk about how it's humid, warm, and something like that. So we try to avoid that. But sometimes we have to tell the stories, and especially if that's the character that are inside it that are telling it.
Yeah.
So the squad, if they are saying, okay, I seen something that is green on the outside, this stay a bit logical for us to have our character see the world as it is, and ourselves see the world as we perceive it. Yeah. And so this was our link to the game. I think that's a better answer I can give you.
Yeah. I'm going to we have 10 minutes left in the chat, everyone, which means we only have a certain amount of time left with our wonderful guests. If you have questions for Herve and Matteo, we'd love to hear them. We also, if you just want to keep saying how much you love the game, I don't object. And within this space of time, while I give you all time to answer questions, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is the GDC Twitch channel with Game Developers Conference, as you can see right above my head. What we are all about is just about the art and business of making video games. We stream games here on this Twitch channel and talk to developers who make them. That's our whole oeuvre. If you want more of that, please click the follow button. But more importantly, we have an excellent opportunity for you, especially because you're watching this on Twitch at home. GDC 2021 this year is going to be online. It's going to be in July, starting on July 19th. If you want to register for GDC, I have a button down below somewhere down there. Yeah, we're all pointing down. If you go click on that button, you can register, you can get a pass. There's already a whole schedule of talks up that you can see. Whether you're just coming with the Expo Pass, there's some amazing talks. If you decide to go in for something more specific to see more in-depth talks, it's just, the schedule is packed, everyone. Like, I cannot stress enough. I just went through the talks yesterday. I was picking out some favorites, and it's a killer session this year. And I don't just say that because I work here, but I love watching GDC talks, and they're great. Yeah, if there's anything else you need from the GDC brand, we also have the GDC YouTube channel where you can watch more amazing talks, including ones we just had from GDC Showcase. And as always, you can find myself, Bryant. I'm on Twitter at rbryant2012, and you can also find my writing frequently on Gamma Sutra, the website about the art and business of making video games. With that, looks like questions from chat have not quite piled in, but we're gonna go out on one final question for each of you here. I really like the story that we have here of a student game that went from class project to kind of thesis all the way to commercial success. So first Matteo, then Herve. If you had another student in front of you working on a project of similar scope, what is something you would want them to hear based on your experience on this? Feel free to make it as optimistic or as cynical as you like. But you've got a student. There's probably there's plenty. Oh wait, Kenzakoya is weirdly Kenzakoya is actually kind of summing up the energy of the question, which is how do you manage going directly from school to the professional world? So we're gonna throw my question out the window because I don't care about my questions. I'm useless. We're gonna go with Kenzakoya's question for each of you. I'd like to know from each of you, how do you manage going directly from school to the professional world? Matteo, I've got you on screen first, so I'm gonna command you to go first.
I'm going for it. Thank you, Kenza. And so this was. I'm gonna be pessimistic. Can I?
You can be pessimistic. Pessimism is
okay. Okay, you have to respect the luck, and this is one of the rule of what we are very lucky to have met and Herve through this jury, and I know this will be maybe difficult to hear, but I want to people who are working and starting and leaving school soon or already left. We are very lucky to have all these people that has accepted to trust us and to work with us. And even if you can meet the good people, and you can have them to help you to move to something more professional and something more strong. You have to respect the luck. So you have to work hard. You have to understand that maybe not everything will work in the beginning of your career and of your experience with video game. You have to be patient, and you have to respect and seize opportunities when they show up. This is what we did when we were at school, and this is what we thought, okay, maybe it's too much, maybe it's too difficult, maybe it's hard, maybe it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard, it was difficult, and it still is, because we are facing now the public, and this is something that may be difficult for some people, and for me too. And it was difficult, but it's it's worth it. It's worth it. So if you want to take a risk, make sure the people you talk with is worth of your trust. And if they trust you and you want to work with them, seize the opportunity. Say yes to risk and kinda accept that it's risky, accept that it's difficult, but this is how things work here, I think.
Herve, and now I will throw the question to you, which just for repeating, which was how do you manage going directly from school to the professional world?
I think I agree with Matteo. It's some kind of luck, but as you know, you can have a little influence on luck by showing yourself on the best way possible, and be resilient, be confident. And also, what interests me as an investor, for example, is something I cannot do myself, something different, something I've not seen. So it's much riskier, it's more difficult to convince people. And even when we start .NET, it was a long time before we started this huge company. It was difficult, and we found people were confident because we bring something they're not saying elsewhere. I don't say you must be a rock star, but in a way, try to act as a rock star. You're right. And if you don't find anyone who believes in you, it's perhaps that you are wrong. But if you don't try, you will never know. So you have to try first, and then will luck come with trying, showing what you are doing, whatever it is. And so try to bring different, something new, fresh, and things. Even if people say you should do this and that, if you don't agree, don't say I will do this and that. I think that's one of the key. I think the greatest student project and greatest indie project are projects who are different and quite nobody believes in first. And then, there is huge, big success, and they're always coming from outside of anybody's mind. And so if you want to be a student and go to video games, so you have to take risk first, and can take another path. Is that going to be more senior, exert yourself in other company? It's a wiser way, because when you're a student, sometimes you also have to pay for your studies, and so it's not easy to start a company at the same time. Yep. So there is a very different way, but believe in your luck. But to believe in luck is because you work and do things different. And also help people who have great ideas. If you are not, it's not easy to have a good and great ideas. So help people who are about to have ideas. Don't be too pretentious also.
Right on. Well, Matteo and Herve, thank you so much for joining me. For everyone in chat, y'all came up with some good questions right at the end, but unfortunately our time is running out. Nameless13 is a Twitter account, at _nameless_13. Or maybe there's another underscore in there. Oh, Vernon, thanks so much. Yeah, we're so glad we can do these kind of Q&A streams, and I'm glad y'all like the game. This is a super neat thing. I was super excited to play it myself. And to Herve and Matteo, thank you so much for bringing this. This is a neat game. The story of inside the game is neat, and the story of how it was made is also neat. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and I hope everyone has a very good Thursday. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.